So for mental math, now we start doing sine, cos, and tan. Mental math, you know, you have your unit circle for a check, but one of the things I want you to do is when you see an angle like 7 pi over 6, can you tell me what quadrant it's going to be in? Quadrant 3. And because it's in quadrant 3, you know that it's going to be negative. Then just think about your pi over 6 family. Like I said before, if you know your quadrant 1, you're going to know all the quadrants. So if we think of pi over 6, sine of pi over 6 is 30-degree family is 1/2 or root 3 over 2. 1/2. And then because it's in quadrant 3, it'll be negative 1/2. Okay? The reference angle, because it says state the reference angle, that's just stating what family it belongs to, and that's easy to see directly from it. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to finish up. Well, a couple seconds. You can do these ones, and then we'll put the answers up. So 2 pi over 3 is in quadrant 2. You notice that because 2 is 1 less than 3. That's a pattern that we use to help us remember that. It's part of the pi over 3 family, so that's our reference angle. Tan of pi over 3 is root 3 over 3, so tan of 2 pi, it's just root 3. Tan of pi over 3 is root 3, so tan of 2 pi over 3 will be negative root 3 because it's in quadrant 2. The hint that I use to help remember my tans, okay, for pi over 3 family, it's root 3. For pi over 6 family, 3 plus 3 is 6. That's the strategy I use to remember the two of them because they're so similar. Cos, 7 pi over 4. That's going to be in quadrant 4. Part of the pi over 4 family. Since cos of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2, cos of 7 pi over 4 will also be positive because cos is positive in quadrant 4. So we also get root 2 over 2. Here's our first one with a reciprocal function. What we're going to do is we're first going to figure out cos of the angle. Remember, the angle doesn't flip. The answer flips. So we've got an angle inside there, cos of negative pi over 4, secant negative pi over 4. I keep the angle the same. I don't flip the angle. Now, I'm going to think about cos of negative pi over 4. That's in quadrant 4. The reference angle is still pi over 4. So I know that cos of negative pi over 4 is going to equal root 2 over 2. That means that secant of negative pi over 4 is going to be the reciprocal 2 over root 2. Now just some things for reminder because it could come up on a multiple choice question. On a multiple choice question they would probably rationalize this and simplify it and you would get just root 2. You might remember from our special triangles that another way to write root 2 over 2 was 1 over root 2. And if you had written as 1 over root 2, when you do the reciprocal, you get the root 2 over 1 right away. But either way, this would be fine. All you'd have to do is rationalize. You'd see that you get 2 root 2 all divided by 2, and those 2's would cancel out to leave you with just root 2. So again, with the reciprocal ones, and I'll give you a little bit of time to finish up E and F, you don't flip the angle, you just flip the ratio or the answer. So let's see how you did. For cotangent negative 11 pi over 6, think of tangent. Negative 11 pi over 6 is going to end in quadrant 1 because it's going in the negative direction. And, of course, the reference angle is your pi over 6 family. So then tan of negative 11 pi over 6 will equal root 3 over 3 and be positive. That means that cotangent of negative 11 pi over 6 will be 3 over root 3. Which, if you rationalize the denominator, would equal root 3. Finally, cosecant of negative pi over 2, we're going to think about sine of negative pi over 2. That ends right on the axes family, right? It's it's between quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. So anytime that we end on our axes family, I really want you to think about the unit circle. You know what the coordinates of those points are on your unit circle. And in this case, negative pi over 2, we're ending right there. So sine of negative pi over 2, being the y coordinate, is going to equal to negative 1. So cosecant of negative pi over 2, well, you can write the reciprocal if you like, 1 over negative 1, but that is just the same as negative 1 anyways. So the most typical kind of questions that you see on your final exam that deal with knowing your pi plate and knowing which quadrant it's in and being able to find the value from your pi plate are ones that look like this. Most exams, these are out of 3 marks. What it's asking you to do is to find each one separately. And we're going to figure out a value that we're going to put in here, a value that we're going to put in here, and a value that we're going to put in here. Now, you might have to do some preliminary work. Eventually, you'll be able to do this sort of all in your head. But this is what would happen inside of your head in these cases. For secant, you would think about cos. 11 pi over 3. And you might think of this as 3 2/3 pi. So you already know it's part of the pi over 3 family. And because it's going 3 2/3, you'd know it ends in quadrant 4. And the cos of pi over 3 family is 1/2. So secant of 11 pi over 3 will be 2 over 1. And where cos is positive, secant would be positive as well. So this all would go on inside of your head. Maybe you draw a little bit on some scrap paper off to the side, especially ones where you have to convert from the improper fraction to the mixed fraction to find out what quadrant it's in. And then once we find out that cos of the pi over 3 is 1/2, the secant will be 2 over 1. So here we've got cos again, pi over 4 family. You might already know that it's going to be root 2 over 2 as soon as you see the pi over 4 family with cos. We just have to decide whether that's positive or negative. Negative 5 pi over 4 in the negative direction would end in quadrant 2. And cos is negative in quadrant 2, so there would be a negative there. The last one is tan. You see the pi over 6 family, so you already know it's going to be root 3 over 3. We just have to figure out what quadrant 23 pi over 6 is in. If you change 23 pi over 6 to a mixed fraction, you get 3 and 5/6. And that's going to end in quadrant 4. And in quadrant 4, tan is negative. Now that you've found each of those, we've got a bunch of fractions multiplied together. You have to remember your fraction rules. How do I multiply fractions? Well, I multiply the tops and I multiply the bottoms. So on the bottom, I'm going to get 1 times 2 times 3 is 6. On the top, a negative times a negative is positive, and you're going to get a 2. And root 2 times root 3, we remember you can multiply radicals, and that's equal to root 6. And finally, when we simplify this, you get root 6 over 3. If you had left it like this would give you full marks on the final exam because you do not need to simplify fractions as far as the numbers in front. You would have to put the root 2 and the root 3 together to get the root 6. So you put numbers together that you can when you're multiplying, but you don't have to simplify the fraction into lowest terms. So one of the main things that's going to help you move forward in this unit is just getting tons of practice with thinking of your unit circle, trying to do it by memory, but having it there to check that you got your answers right. The second handout that I gave you is more unit circle practice, and you'll notice in part 3, part 2 and in part 3, they start to get these questions where you have multi-revolutions and they get harder as you go along. So you really have to put things together, multiply them out and simplify. So make sure you get those practice. They're also great ways to practice studying for your unit circle quiz tomorrow.